so-called ugly woman. Feeling humiliated, he was about to retort when Luna Claire spoke first. "If you don't know how to talk, keep your mouth shut." Her frosty tone silenced the laughter around her, only for it to erupt even louder moments later. "Ha ha, Kai brother, she told you to shut up." "Exactly, this ugly one sure is fierce." "So, Kai brother, are you going to shut up or not?" "In my opinion, if she dares to disrespect Kai brother, just give her a slap and be done with it." The crowd, made up entirely of spoiled young men in their 20s, egged him on with jeers and provocations. Luna Claire squinted her eyes. Her gaze swept over the crowd before finally stopping on the sharp-tongued young master. Seeing him frown and look at her amidst the noisy laughter, she raised an eyebrow. Oh, this might be a bit interesting. It seemed she had just discovered something, but Luna Claire probed with her thoughts, her eyes scanning over the sharp-tongued man, then stopping at a certain point, and the corner of her lips slightly curved up. It appeared her luck today wasn't bad. Not only did she uncover a secret, but she also stumbled upon a fat lamb. Damn it! Luna Claire's eyes glimmered with amusement as she glanced back at the man. "You should go home and get your illness treated before coming out here to brag." With that, she turned around and left, as carefree as the wind. Meanwhile, William Knight stood frozen in place, his expression as if he had just seen a ghost. Others might not have noticed, but just now, that woman had clearly, very clearly, looked at that part of him. Thinking of this, William Knight's ears involuntarily turned bright red. Chapter 26. Wasn't she here to amuse me? "Brother Knight, that young lady said you're sick." The group of spoiled young masters behind him noticed Luna Claire had walked far away, yet William Knight remained motionless. They spoke up to remind him, their tone obviously teasing. William Knight snapped out of it, the redness on his ears gradually fading. The complex look in his eyes was quickly concealed, replaced by anger. "The auction is about to begin, you all go ahead. I'll go teach that ugly woman a lesson." There were some things he had already given up hope on, but just now, for a fleeting moment, his heart. In summary, he was determined to find that ugly woman and question her thoroughly to confirm whether his suspicions were correct. "Brother Knight, how about we help you?" a spoiled young master suggested. "Humph. Brother Tran, do you not trust William's abilities? Do you think William can't even handle a single woman?" William Knight expressed his displeasure. No, of course, we trust Brother Knight's abilities." The young master surnamed Tran was clearly wary of William Knight, and dared not say more. "In that case, we'll take our leave first." After saying so, the group bid farewell to William Knight. Once they disappeared from sight, William Knight chased after the direction Luna Claire had gone. Luna Claire wandered around for a while, and discovered that the first floor of the Wanderer's Tower was divided into 3 sections: pawn shop, antiques, and medicinal herbs. Only from the second floor onward was it the auction area. However, to enter, one needed to purchase an entry ticket 3 days in advance. In other words, she couldn't attend the auction today. With plenty of time on her hands, Luna Claire wasn't in a hurry and went straight to the pawn shop section. The pawn shop area was quite spacious, with only one appraiser inside, who was dozing off. Luna Claire entered, and he didn't even notice. Bang! With a loud noise, Luna Claire dumped all the items she had hidden on her person onto the counter. Previously, when she visited a pawn shop, she only brought a jade pendant. Now that she knew the Wanderer's Tower pawn shop accepted her goods, she naturally didn't hold back and brought everything. "Aw, what's going on? Thunderstorm?" The appraiser woke up startled, looking around in confusion. Luna Claire. Was he here to crack jokes or what? Moreover, what was with that droopy silver beard hanging loosely under his chin? Could fake beards be in fashion these days? Luna Claire looked at the silver-haired appraiser, whose face showed no wrinkles, yet he wore a fake beard. She frowned deeply, feeling that this man wasn't very reliable. At that moment, the appraiser regained his composure. Seeing Luna Claire's ugly face across the counter, instead of being startled or frightened like others, he seemed quite intrigued as he examined her. "Young lady, your makeup is quite unique." Luna Claire. Should she thank him for the compliment? Why did she feel like she'd come to the wrong place? "Are you here to pawn something, miss?" the appraiser asked with a goofy grin, his fake beard looking as though it was about to fall off, making him look utterly bizarre. "Why don't you just fix your beard?" Watching this, she almost couldn't suppress her obsessive-compulsive tendencies, and wanted to yank the fake beard off herself. "Huh?" The appraiser seemed a bit dazed, then touched his chin and immediately looked embarrassed. My mistake, my mistake. Wait a moment. As he spoke, he turned around and somehow pulled out a large bronze mirror, then began reattaching his beard while looking into it. Luna Claire. She was certain this old man was sent by the Monkey King to make her laugh. Chapter 27. Like a bullied little daughter-in-law, the appraisal master, after sticking on his fake beard, turned back with a stern expression, looking significantly more trustworthy. "What do you want to pawn, young lady?" Luna Claire. She silently pointed at the pile of items ignored on the counter, saying nothing. The master only glanced at it briefly, not even picking it up, and directly gave a price. 3,000 taels. Luna Claire. Somehow, it still didn't feel very credible because she was sure he only skimmed over the pile. But based on the original owner's memories, 3,000 taels seemed somewhat acceptable. Just as she was about to speak, the master added, "All right, fine, 5,000 taels for you." Luna Claire. Was this master's head stuck in a door or something? Why was he suddenly giving her extra money? "Are you sure you want to give me 5,000 taels?" Luna Claire couldn't help but ask. "What? Don't trust my judgment?" The master blew his beard and glared. "Do you dare question old Dong's expertise without asking around first?" Luna Claire. Deal. Faced with such an eccentric old man, what else could she say? One hand handed over the money, the other handed over the goods. For some reason, as she received the banknotes from old Dong, Luna Claire felt his gaze was somewhat odd, leaving her with an indescribable feeling. Not lingering at the pawnshop for long, Luna Claire headed straight to the pharmacy. As she approached the entrance, she noticed William Knight approaching from a distance. With just a glance, Luna Claire understood but had no intention of paying him any attention and walked straight into the shop. Seeing this, William Knight hesitated for a moment before following her inside. Luna Claire walked to the table on the left side of the pharmacy, picked up a brush, and swiftly wrote down a list of items before handing it directly to the shop assistant. The assistant glanced at the paper, seeing items like acupuncture needles and some basic medical tools, along with a few scattered medicinal herbs. It didn't look like a coherent prescription, which made him glance at Luna Claire with some suspicion. However, he said nothing and turned to the back room to prepare. Truly, a well-disciplined individual. At this time, coinciding with the start of the auction event, the spacious pharmacy had few customers. Seeing this, William Knight, who had been hesitating from a distance, finally couldn't hold back and approached. "Do you know medicine?" His voice was full of doubt. This unattractive woman, who looked no older than her teens, could she really understand medicine as he thought? Could it be that everything just now was merely a coincidence? Luna Claire acted as if she hadn't heard, stepping aside. William Knight, undeterred, continued to follow. "Hey, woman, I'm asking you a question." His tone carried a hint of irritation. Luna Claire turned around, looking at William Knight with an icy gaze. "Didn't your mother teach you manners?" Every word out of his mouth was, "You," and he kept calling her, "woman." This guy was truly asking for a beating. William Knight was at a loss for words, feeling somewhat embarrassed but still softened his tone. "Miss, do you know medicine?" This overly polite way of speaking not only made the speaker feel awkward, but also gave Luna Claire goosebumps just hearing it. It seemed the gentlemanly style didn't suit everyone. "No." Luna Claire bluntly extinguished the glimmer of hope in William Knight's eyes. However, William Knight, growing anxious, refused to give up and grabbed Luna Claire's hand. "How can you not know medicine? If you don't know medicine, then just now how did you?" His voice trailed off, his face flushed red, unable to finish his sentence. He could only look at Luna Claire with a pitiful gaze, like a wronged bride. Luna Claire. Chapter 28. Duncan Gold chases for debt. "Let go! I won't!" The waiter, stepping out, was greeted by the sight of William Knight clutching Luna Claire's hand, as if he were a heartbroken husband abandoned by his cold wife. The scene was utterly bizarre. Seeing the waiter approach, Luna Claire shot a cold glare at William Knight. "If you won't let go, then go find someone else." A clear threat. Hearing this, William Knight froze for a moment, then hurriedly let go. He wanted to ask for clarification about what Luna Claire had just said but hesitated. Luna Claire couldn't be bothered with William Knight. She walked toward the waiter, but upon noticing he was empty-handed, she couldn't help but feel puzzled. Just as she was about to speak, an old man suddenly rushed out from behind the counter. "Young lady, what is this medicine you're using for? This old man can't make sense of it at all." Luna Claire. "Why is it this strange old man again?" "Wait a moment, young lady. How close are they exactly?" Luna Claire looked at the old man she had just met at the pawn shop with an exasperated expression. Duncan Gold, however, seemed oblivious to Luna Claire's irritation. He lifted his head from the prescription paper and grinned cheekily at her. "Hey, young lady, what a coincidence. We meet again." Luna Claire. Coincidence? Really? Why did she feel like this old man was deliberately following her? "Are the medicines ready?" Luna Claire ignored the old man and asked the shop assistant beside her. The assistant, already slightly flustered, was about to answer when Duncan Gold cut him off. "Ready, ready. Exactly 5,000 taels." With that, he glanced at the assistant. "Well, hurry up and bring the items out." The assistant quickly obeyed and went inside. Luna Claire frowned. This time, she couldn't hold back any longer and spoke up. 5,000 taels? Are you trying to rob me?" Sure, some of the herbs were quite rare, but no way could they cost 5,000 taels. This old man, he must have followed her just to scam her, right? At that moment, the assistant returned with the prepared items. Hearing that the total was 5,000 taels, he too was startled. He calculated quickly in his head. At most, it should only cost 500 taels. Duncan Gold was going too far with his deceit. The assistant awkwardly looked at Duncan Gold, seeing Luna Claire's expression clearly saying, "You're definitely scamming me." Duncan Gold immediately looked displeased. He pulled out a small package from his chest and glared at Luna Claire. "You ungrateful girl! Why would I need to scam you? If it weren't for the fact that you're dirt poor and only have 5,000 taels, do you think I'd let it go for just that? This acupuncture needle set is worth 50,000 taels, and I wouldn't sell it even then. I've already given you a discount, and you still accuse me of lying? Is there any girl as ungrateful as you?" Duncan Gold rambled on, saliva flying everywhere as he spoke. Yet, Luna Claire's attention was drawn to the acupuncture needles he mentioned. While the old man was in the middle of his tirade, she grabbed the package containing the needles. As soon as she opened it, Luna Claire felt a strange sensation, as though the needles were calling out to her, stirring her heart. Even though she couldn't discern what was so special about this needle set, she wanted it. It was an instinct, an incredibly strong instinct telling her that if she didn't take this needle set, she would regret it deeply. Chapter 29. The man who hurriedly jumped into the pit. If you don't want it, then don't look at it. Duncan Gold snorted coldly, snatching back the needle pouch from Luna Claire's hand. Who said? Who cares anyway? It's just some acupuncture needles, right? I can just have someone make more. Luna Claire was about to grab the needle pouch back when William Knight, standing nearby, couldn't hold back any longer and spoke up. It's just a few acupuncture needles, yet they were priced at 5,000 silver coins. Since when did the Wanderer's Tower become such a place for extortion? This matter had nothing to do with him, but for some reason, he didn't want to see this ugly woman get swindled. Oh, you'll have someone make them? Duncan Gold sneered, looking William Knight up and down with disdain in his eyes. Fine, go ahead and have someone make them, and don't forget to make plenty of sets. With that, he glanced at Luna Claire with a look of pity, turned around, and prepared to leave, muttering under his breath. Clueless fool. I'll take the needles. Luna Claire, sensing the situation turning bad, quickly spoke up. Are you stupid? How much could those needles possibly be worth? If you need acupuncture needles, shut up. Shut up. William Knight tried to dissuade her, but his words were simultaneously cut off by two voices. Luna Claire glared at William Knight, who was meddling in others' business, then quickly pulled out the stack of banknotes that hadn't even warmed her hands and stuffed it into Duncan Gold's hand. Before he could react, she snatched the needle set and tucked it into her chest. Her actions were swift and decisive, fearing Duncan Gold might change his mind. The shop assistant and William Knight were both stunned, never having seen anyone so eager to jump into a pit like this. On the contrary, Duncan Gold burst into hearty laughter as he looked at Luna Claire, seemingly very pleased that she recognized the value. If you've managed to snag such a great deal, could you tell this old man what you're planning to do with those herbs? Clearly, Duncan Gold was still curious about Luna Claire's chaotic and unorthodox prescription. To save lives, to harm lives. She uttered just 4 short words, took the package of herbs the shop assistant had carefully wrapped, and walked out of the store. She wasn't particularly interested in satisfying Duncan Gold's curiosity. Instead, she was far more intrigued by the needle set in her hands. Of course, rather than asking Duncan Gold about the mysteries of this needle set, she preferred to uncover the answers herself. As Luna Claire left, William Knight, her persistent shadow, naturally followed closely behind. Neither of them noticed Duncan Gold watching Luna Claire's departing figure, his gaze filled with complex emotions that could no longer be hidden, a stark contrast to his previous disdainful demeanor. Upon exiting Wanderer's Tower, Luna Claire halted abruptly. William Knight, not expecting her sudden stop, nearly bumped into her. How long do you plan on following me? Luna Claire looked at William Knight, a faint smile in her eyes. As she had guessed, although William Knight outwardly acted sharp-tongued and reckless, he wasn't inherently bad. She had realized this when the group had ganged up to mock him. If that weren't the case, she wouldn't have paid him any attention. However, it was time to shake off this tale. If she returned too late, she'd face trouble. Do you know that I... William Knight stammered, unable to get to the point. You want to ask if I know you're impotent? As soon as the word impotent left Luna Claire's lips, William Knight hurriedly covered her mouth, both embarrassed and furious. Do you even know what shame is? This ugly woman, does she have no sense of shame? What kind of woman would openly say the words, impotent, like that? And another thing, doesn't she realize they're in the middle of the street right now? Does he not need his dignity anymore? Chapter 30. Want to repay with your body? Luna Claire rolled her eyes, and forcefully pushed his hand away from her mouth. If you've got the guts, stop following me. Just saying the word impotent made him this embarrassed? Then why come to her for treatment in the first place? William Knight was at a loss for words, unable to respond. Just thinking about having to rely on a girl younger than him to treat his impotence made his face flush bright red. Suddenly, as if an idea struck him, the redness on William Knight's face faded, replaced by a serious expression, as he scrutinized Luna Claire. Luna Claire. Why is he looking at her like that? So creepy. Don't worry, I'll take responsibility. Just as Luna Claire was pondering how to charge him for the treatment, William Knight suddenly spoke up. Luna Claire. She felt like she couldn't keep up with this idiot's train of thought. I don't understand what you're saying. She genuinely didn't get it. Even though you're a bit ugly, don't worry, I won't look down on you. I'll treat you well. Wait, stop right there. Hearing William Knight's increasingly ridiculous words, Luna Claire finally couldn't hold back anymore and glared at him with an annoyed expression. So you're saying that if I treat your illness, you'll be indebted to me for life? Luna Claire felt like she had figured out what he meant. But seriously, what kind of grudge does she have with this guy? When William Knight heard the words, indebted, he found them strange but understood her meaning, so he nodded, looking ready to sacrifice himself. Luna Claire couldn't take it anymore and smacked William Knight on the head. As if I help you treat your illness, and you think I have designs on you? Do you think you're worth anything? Take a look in the mirror and figure out whether it's your charm or your money that's more appealing. She only agreed to help him for the money, okay? If someone's going to repay her with their body, at least they should have looked like Duke Darius. As for William Knight, Luna Claire looked him up and down with a disgusted expression. So ugly, got it? William Knight. Why does he feel so despised? It's really annoying. All right, stop saying unnecessary things. I'm not interested in any repaying kindness with your body nonsense. I can treat your illness, but let me warn you first, my consultation fees are very expensive. Luna Claire didn't want to waste more words with William Knight and went straight to the point about money. William Knight could sense the rejection in Luna Claire's tone, feeling a bit uneasy for reasons he couldn't quite grasp. However, he didn't dwell on it and simply asked, How much? Luna Claire raised one finger. 5,000 taels? Though a bit pricey, he could afford it. Luna Claire rolled her eyes. 5,000 taels? Was that even worth her wasting words with him here? 50,000. After all, this was her first time practicing medicine in this ancient era. How could her consultation fee be cheap? Moreover, William Knight's private ailment might not be congenital. What if she cured him and ended up inviting trouble for herself? Setting a low price would be a huge loss, wouldn't it? 50,000? Are you robbing me? This time, William Knight truly lost his temper. Seeing this, Luna Claire said nothing more and turned to leave. There were countless people in the world suffering from incurable diseases. Earning money from someone else wouldn't make a difference. She didn't need anyone thinking she was extorting them. William Knight stared at Luna Claire's departing figure, his face full of hesitation. Normally, no one would believe that a plain-looking young girl, barely in her teens, could possess exceptional medical skills. Yet, for some reason, he trusted her completely, not for any particular reason, but simply because she was the first person to immediately recognize his hidden illness at a glance. Still, 50,000 taels was no small amount, and he— Give me some time to think about it. William Knight chased after Luna Claire, looking conflicted. Fine, I'll give you 1 month. Meet me here in a month. Luna Claire replied curtly. William Knight let out a sigh of relief and voiced the last question lingering in his mind. How did you figure it out? Have you ever looked in the mirror properly before going out? Chapter 31. Revenge must be taken with a clear conscience. Luna Claire returned William Knight's earlier mocking words to him word for word. leaving him dumbfounded and embarrassed on the spot as she walked away with ease. Luna Claire thought that returning to Clare Manor would undoubtedly lead to trouble. After all, the novels about household struggles she had read always followed this trope. But reality proved that she was overthinking. From the grand gate to her dilapidated small courtyard, the path was smooth and unimpeded. Not to mention being troubled, she didn't even catch sight of a single dignified master of Clare Manor. Although she found it slightly odd that after her trip to the palace, no one even bothered to inquire about her, Luna Claire didn't pay it much mind. Upon returning to her room, Luna Claire immediately sent Lily away and busied herself with the items she had brought back. Meanwhile, the rest of the Clare Manor household, nowhere to be seen, were gathered in the study, discussing how to create an opportunity for Vivian Clare to approach Darius Knight. After a long silence, Arthur Clare made his decision. The reputation of our Clare Manor is currently plummeting, and the madam has been accused of mistreating her own biological daughter. As he spoke, Arthur Clare cast a displeased look at Eleanor Clare. Eleanor Clare's face showed grievance upon hearing this, but she did not defend herself. This expression, however, softened Arthur Clare's gaze slightly. Coincidentally, in 3 days, we can host a welcoming banquet for Luna. First, to clear the madam's bad reputation, and second. Arthur Clare looked at Vivian Clare with a serious expression. I will find a way to invite Duke Darius to the manor. This is your only chance. When Vivian Clare heard that her opportunity was tied to Luna Clare's welcoming banquet, she felt a twinge of dissatisfaction. She thought of how many chances there were, yet it had to involve the Jinx, who had stolen her title as the legitimate daughter. However, seeing Arthur Clare's stern face, despite the bitterness in her heart, Vivian Clare nodded. She clenched her hands tightly, silently vowing to seize this opportunity and catch Duke Darius's attention. That way, she would become the most noble woman under the heavens. Luna Clare had no idea about Vivian Clare's thoughts. At this moment, she was looking at the porcelain bottle in her hand, the corners of her lips slightly curling upward. It seemed someone was about to have bad luck. Night fell, and everything was silent. A petite figure emerged from the west courtyard, skillfully avoiding the patrolling guards of Clare Manor, and sneaked into Orchid Garden, where Vivian Clare resided. This person was none other than Luna Clare. And tonight was the night Luna Clare decided to exact her revenge. Of course, Luna Clare was well aware that the mastermind behind the original owner's disfigurement was Eleanor Clare, but how could Vivian Clare not be involved in this matter? Moreover, Vivian Clare was someone Eleanor Clare deeply cherished. Taking revenge on Vivian Clare would be far more entertaining than directly targeting Eleanor Clare. Luna Clare slipped into Vivian Clare's room. Thanks to her extraordinary eyes, her night vision was exceptionally sharp. Glancing around at the arrangement of Vivian Clare's room, Luna Clare couldn't help but feel a bit astonished. Both were daughters of the same family, yet the treatment was worlds apart. Judging by this room, it seemed Eleanor Clare had poured all the best resources here. It appeared her decision to target Vivian Clare tonight was indeed the right one. To exact revenge, fairness was essential for satisfaction. A sly, slightly sinister smile curved on Luna Clare's lips as she quietly approached Vivian Clare's bed, her gaze resting on Vivian Clare's face. She had to admit, Vivian Clare was truly a rare beauty. But what would happen if this face were ruined? Honestly, Luna Clare couldn't help but look forward to their reactions. Without hesitation, Luna Clare sprinkled the powder in her hand onto Vivian Clare's face. Colorless, odorless, and quickly absorbed. Wasting no time, Luna Clare completed her task and left. From beginning to end, Vivian Clare remained sound asleep, showing no signs of waking. It wasn't until Luna Clare's figure completely vanished from Orchid Garden that a white silhouette, hidden in the shadows, quietly emerged. Watching Luna Clare's departing figure, The corners of that person's lips lifted slightly, their eyes gleaming with intrigue. As expected, she was as fascinating as he had imagined. The white figure intended to follow Luna Claire, but suddenly sensed someone approaching, and that person's cultivation level was not low. His gaze was profound, glancing in that direction, and his smile deepened. In the next moment, a white figure flickered and quickly disappeared into the night. The spot where the white figure had just stood was immediately replaced by another person. Looking in the direction the figure had left, the newcomer frowned, lost in thought. Early the next morning, Luna Claire was still sound asleep when she suddenly felt the door to her room being pushed open. Almost the moment it opened, Luna Claire alertly opened her eyes, a cold glint flashing within them. She sat up, only to find her bed surrounded by maids and older servants, all smiling obsequiously, their expressions oddly peculiar. However, when their eyes landed on the dark marks on Luna Claire's face, they collectively gasped in shock. "Heavens, young miss, your face!" the lead servant woman exclaimed in horror without any hesitation. Though her words trailed off, her eyes were filled with glee. The others also showed disdainful expressions. Some had seen Luna Claire's true appearance when she first arrived at the estate, but it had been a long time, and with her habit of deliberately making herself look unattractive, they had forgotten what she truly looked like. Now, seeing her like this, they felt a tinge of doubt, but didn't dwell on it. Luna Claire coldly scanned their expressions, her lips curling into a frosty smile. "Young miss, this old servant came today to kneel." Before the servant woman could finish her sentence, Luna Claire coldly commanded, her gaze icy. The maids and servants froze, momentarily intimidated by Luna Claire's cold glare, but none of them knelt. Luna Claire's lips curled further, the chill in her eyes deepening. "Very well, it seems if she doesn't assert herself for even a day, these people think they can walk all over her." No one saw how Luna Claire moved, but after a few thuds, a group of them was already kneeling in front of her bed. Lily rushed in, startled by the scene before her. Without thinking much, she hurriedly found a spot and knelt down. "Miss, this servant went to fetch breakfast for you and didn't know they barged in," Lily quickly explained, fearing she might be implicated. Clearly, after the previous beating, she was completely terrified of Luna Claire. Seeing Lily's expression, which didn't seem to be feigned, Luna Claire didn't pursue the matter further. However, deep inside, she thought that the manpower here was indeed a bit lacking. If anyone could barge in so casually like this, would she ever have any privacy? Thinking about it, a name suddenly came to Luna Claire's mind. Chapter 32, Cleansing Banquet 1, River Ford. Back in her hometown, the original owner once saved a maid, and this maid was someone who knew gratitude and repaid kindness. She had always stayed by the original owner's side, loyal to the core. But, thinking of this, Luna Claire narrowed her eyes slightly. It seemed that from the day General Claire sent someone to fetch the original owner began to distance herself from River Ford. In her memories, on the day the original owner left, River Ford knelt down and begged to follow her. But the original owner refused. What had happened? Luna Claire wasn't sure, but this River Ford, perhaps she needed to find an opportunity to bring her back. "Eldest miss, this old servant was sent by Madam. Isn't it a bit excessive to make us kneel?" Mama Martha King criticized while rubbing her aching knees, attempting to stand up. But before she could rise, Luna Claire extended her leg and kicked Mama Martha King straight in the chest. "Ouch!" Mama Martha King fell backward, limbs flailing in the air, looking utterly ridiculous. The other maids, seeing this, wanted to laugh but didn't dare to, so they could only lower their heads. "All of you were sent by Madam?" Luna Claire coldly eyed the group. "Yes." The responses were scattered and inconsistent. "So, Is this how your mistress teaches you manners? Entering the master's room without knocking? Luna Claire's voice turned even colder. At this moment, the group finally understood where they had offended Luna Claire. However, one maid spoke up. This servant was merely overjoyed for the eldest miss and momentarily forgot proper etiquette. Why must the eldest miss treat us servants this way? As she spoke, the maid cast a resentful glance at Luna Claire before stepping forward to help Mama Martha King up. Observing the scene, Luna Claire noticed a certain resemblance between the two and quickly understood the connection. So what you're saying is that as long as you're happy, you can barge into the master's room as you please? If that's the case, perhaps I should go out and sing praises of your mistress, so that the other ladies in the capital can learn from her exceptional way of disciplining her servants. What do you think? If this matter wasn't addressed clearly today, it would surely bring trouble in the future. It was better to resolve it thoroughly now. Otherwise, wouldn't anyone feel free to invade her room at will? Hearing this, the maid was about to argue back when suddenly a loud slap echoed through the room, plunging it into silence. What shocked everyone was that the one who delivered the slap was none other than Mama Martha King, who had just been helped up. After the slap, Mama Martha King faced the stunned and disbelieving gaze of the maid, a trace of pain flashing in her eyes. But she turned her face away and knelt before Luna Claire. Eldest miss, Hope was thoughtless and spoke out of turn. The fault of entering without knocking lies with this servant alone and has nothing to do with the mistress. Please punish this servant. Mama Martha King had served Eleanor Claire for many years and understood the gravity of today's situation. She knew that if this matter were spread by the eldest miss, it wouldn't just tarnish Eleanor Claire's reputation. Servants like them would be the first to suffer the consequences. Thus, Mama Martha King immediately abandoned her earlier arrogance and adopted a more respectful demeanor. Seeing Mama Martha King yield, Luna Claire wasn't surprised. She merely responded indifferently. If that's the case, I won't make things difficult for you. Kneel and speak. With that, she turned her gaze to Hope. And you, slap yourself 10 times as punishment. Otherwise, if you continue to speak recklessly and cause trouble for your mistress, it won't end well. Hope, naturally unwilling to slap herself, hesitated. But at that moment, Mama Martha King, afraid that Hope might say something inappropriate again, quickly pleaded with Luna Claire. Eldest miss, Hope is my daughter. Her lack of discipline is my fault. Please allow me to carry out the punishment myself. Without waiting for Hope to react, Mama Martha King raised her hand and delivered the slaps. The strikes were forceful, with no sign of restraint, causing Luna Claire to silently remark, "How ruthless." After 10 slaps, Hope's face was swollen like a pig's head, rendering her unable to speak. The other maids, witnessing this, dared not utter a word. Satisfied with the outcome, Luna Claire finally turned her attention to Mama Martha King. Speak. Coming here so early in the morning, what's the matter? It seemed that when they first arrived, everyone was all smiles, and Hope had even mentioned being overjoyed. Could it be that something joyous had occurred in her dilapidated courtyard? How could she believe it? As soon as Luna Claire asked, Mama Martha King's face froze, deeply regretting her impulsive decision to barge in today. She regretted not learning from Mama Mary Jones' experience and provoking this harbinger of death. If not, none of the events that followed would have happened. But regret came too late. Thus, she could only force a stiff smile and said to Luna Claire, Dear First Miss, here's the situation. Madam realizes she has neglected you over time, so she plans to hold a cleansing banquet for you 3 days from now. This will allow the young ladies of the capital to get acquainted with you and ensure you don't feel lonely in this foreign land. I've come to take your measurements for the outfit you'll wear to the banquet. With just a few brief sentences, Mama Martha King explained her purpose for being there. She thought Luna Claire would be delighted, but contrary to her expectations, Luna's expression remained unchanged, devoid of any emotion. The truth was, Luna Claire had no interest in this so-called cleansing banquet. As for the reason Eleanor Claire gave for organizing it, Luna found it laughable. From being forced to replace her sister in marriage without a groom to receive her, to missing the auspicious hour and being blocked outside Duke Marcus's manor, to waking up in a brothel, she had already experienced such outrageous events. Forget the young ladies of the capital. Even the commoners likely knew her name by now. In this situation, who would want to associate with her? Therefore, she became even more curious about the true reason behind this banquet. Logically speaking, Vivian Claire's face should have been swollen by now. Eleanor Claire couldn't possibly have thought of organizing a cleansing banquet at this moment, unless this decision had been made before last night, and Eleanor Claire wasn't yet aware of Vivian Claire's condition when she sent people over. This made the banquet even more intriguing. She wondered if Vivian Claire would appear at the banquet 3 days later with that face. After all, Luna wasn't foolish enough to think this banquet was genuinely held in her honor. As for the true purpose of the banquet, well, when soldiers come, the general counters. When water rises, the earth blocks it. Whatever their intentions, what did it matter to her? Thinking this, Luna Claire didn't make things difficult for those before her. She allowed them to stand and take her measurements, letting them proceed as they wished. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye, with no disturbances. What surprised Luna Claire was that, during these 3 days, aside from preparations for the banquet, the general's manor showed no other signs of activity. It was worth noting that the poison she concocted wasn't something easily resolved. Thus, she couldn't help but admire the composure of the general's manner. This only made her more eager to see the spectacle that would unfold today. Chapter 33. The Cleansing Banquet, Part 2. Clare Manor was exceptionally lively today. Every woman attending the banquet was dressed extravagantly, as if afraid of being outshone by others. Of course, this flourishing scene was absolutely not because of Luna Claire. It could be said that no one attending the banquet today regarded Luna Claire with any significance. What a joke! An unsightly, rustic girl with a tarnished reputation. Even if she was the legitimate daughter of Clare Manor, so what? Was she worth their attention? The reason for this bustling atmosphere was that everyone knew Duke Darius would be attending the banquet today. It was well known that Duke Darius rarely participated in social gatherings. Many women longed to catch a glimpse of his unparalleled beauty, yet had no opportunity to do so, let alone interact with him up close. As for the men attending, they were all hoping to seize this chance to gain Duke Darius's favor. Such an opportunity could pave the way to a bright and prosperous future. After all, Duke Darius's power surpassed even that of the emperor. No one would be foolish enough to miss such an occasion. Some people, who hadn't even received invitations from Clare Manor, still found ways to sneak in, creating the lively scene witnessed today. Despite the lively atmosphere outside, Eleanor Claire's face showed no sign of joy. Instead, it was dark and foreboding. The invitations had been prepared the very night she finalized the arrangements. Fearing delays, she had ordered them to be delivered to various residences early in the morning 3 days prior. However, after giving instructions to send out the invitations, she received news of an incident at Orchid Garden. Her daughter's disfigurement was no trivial matter. Naturally, she kept this information hidden, even from Arthur Clare. Eleanor Clare understood all too well that her daughter's favor relied on her beauty. Once that beauty was gone, her value would diminish, and the Prime Minister's affection would wane. Initially, Eleanor Clare planned to wait for Prime Minister Clare's return to discuss canceling the banquet or at least postponing Duke Darius's invitation. That way, she could salvage some of her daughter's reputation. Unexpectedly, before she could bring it up, The Prime Minister joyfully announced that Duke Darius had accepted the invitation. With Duke Darius already agreeing to attend, how could she dare to mention canceling the banquet? That would be courting disaster. It was unclear who leaked the news of Duke Darius's attendance at Clare Manor, leading to today's chaotic situation. What should she do now? Vivian Clare could no longer meet anyone. Such a good opportunity. How could it be handed over to those vixens outside? While Eleanor Clare was feeling as anxious as a cat on hot bricks, Arthur Clare lifted the curtain and walked in. Seeing that Vivian Clare was not by Eleanor Clare's side, he frowned immediately.
Duke Darius will probably arrive soon. Why hasn't Vivian Clare come out yet?
Arthur Clare was in an exceptionally good mood due to the lively atmosphere today. The fact that Duke Darius was willing to grace their residence with his presence made him overjoyed. Moreover, today, his daughter had a high chance of catching Duke Darius's eye. How could he not feel delighted? As for those other young ladies outside? Just a group of overly made-up women. How could they compare to his beautiful daughter? Arthur Clare wasn't worried at all. However, he was completely unaware that his wife and daughter had been hiding a shocking secret from him for days.
My lord, Vivian Clare is feeling unwell today, perhaps.
Eleanor Clare cautiously offered a cup of hot tea, her heart uneasy. Hearing this, Arthur Clare immediately slammed the teacup onto the table.
Nonsense!
Arthur Clare glared at Eleanor Clare.
Have you ever seen Duke Darius attend other parties? Do you think he's easy to invite?
The two consecutive questions left Eleanor Clare speechless. She could only promise to urge Vivian. Seeing that time was running out, Arthur Clare also headed outside. Meanwhile, Luna Clare, after waiting for a long time without anyone coming to invite her to the garden, realized that the main character of today might have been forgotten. Not feeling upset, she simply led Lily to the garden. The people in the garden, who had already begun chatting after noticing Duke Darius had not arrived, grew even more animated. However, as soon as Luna Clare appeared, the entire garden fell into an eerie silence, and the sound of sharp intakes of breath echoed continuously.
Oh my, how ugly!
A female voice broke the silence. Luna Clare turned to see a young lady in a pale yellow dress. Her features could be considered proper, but her upturned nose and arrogant expression made her look disdainful. Seeing Luna Clare glance over, the girl in the yellow dress not only showed no embarrassment, but instead wore an even more mocking expression.
TSK, such fine silk and brocade are wasted on you. Look at your face. How do you even dare to go out and meet people like that?
The words of the girl in the yellow dress earned agreement from others around her. Indeed, Luna Clare was dressed extravagantly today, as it was her welcome banquet. However, the issue lay in the fact that if Luna Clare were beautiful, this outfit would have been the cherry on top. But her face had been disastrously made up by Lily, and paired with the luxurious attire, it looked garish and unpleasant. Mocking laughter echoed around her, yet Luna Clare's gaze quietly landed on Willow Clare, who stood next to the girl in the yellow dress. Her expression carried a faint, ambiguous smile. Clearly, this girl in yellow dared to take the lead in mocking her thanks to Willow Clare's influence. Otherwise, with Luna Clare's splendid outfit today, even if people didn't recognize her, they wouldn't have so easily ridiculed her openly. Willow Clare had been feeling smug, but when she met Luna Clare's gaze, her confidence melted away, leaving only fear in her heart. Trying to steady herself, Willow Clare nervously tugged on the sleeve of the girl in yellow.
Melody, don't be like that. Big sister doesn't mean, Willow, you're just too kind. With a face like hers, she still shamelessly dares to steal the person you care about, and yet you're still speaking up for her. I really feel it's not worth it for you,
Melody Green said, feigning frustration as though she was disappointed in Willow's gentleness. Luna Clare, watching this fake delicate act, Her teeth hurt from the sheer pretense. What should she do about it? Honestly, if it weren't for wanting to watch some drama, she really wouldn't have stepped out to see that White Lotus making everyone sick. Luna Claire directly ignored their mocking remarks, glanced around, and didn't spot Vivian Claire anywhere. A hint of doubt arose in her heart. Today's commotion, no matter how she thought about it, seemed to be related to Vivian Claire. So why wasn't Vivian Claire showing up at all? If that's the case, wouldn't it be too boring? As she was pondering, a sudden uproar erupted from the crowd. Luna Claire's eyes lit up, her face filled with interest as she turned toward the source of the noise. However, before the gleam in her eyes could fade, she unexpectedly locked eyes with a pair of icy cold ones. Luna Claire. Can someone tell her why Duke Darius, who's so busy with countless affairs, appeared here? Darius Knight scanned the crowd and immediately spotted the strikingly unattractive Luna Claire standing out among them. When he saw the light in Luna Claire's eyes instantly turn into horror upon meeting his gaze, Darius Knight felt unexpectedly amused. He had always thought this woman feared neither heaven nor earth, but it seemed she could feel fear after all. Interesting. The corners of Darius Knight's lips curved slightly upward as he strode directly toward Luna Claire. Chapter 34. Did you ask for his opinion?
Oh my gosh! Duke Darius is smiling. He's so handsome.
A love-struck girl screamed, nearly fainting.
Duke Darius is walking toward me. Nonsense! Clearly, he's heading toward me.
The scene turned chaotic as the noble ladies, abandoning their usual reserved demeanor, each became overwhelmingly excited. Facing this situation, Luna Claire had no energy to comment. Instead, she felt increasingly pressured. Because she knew all too well that Darius Knight's gaze was fixed on her, and his target was indeed her. Once these ladies realized the truth, she feared she would become their common enemy. Thinking about how she'd gained so many new adversaries, Luna Claire just wanted to cry. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have come to watch the commotion. This was practically digging her own grave. As Darius Knight walked away, everyone immediately bowed, yet their eyes remained fixed on him. As Darius Knight walked forward, he took pleasure in observing the changes in Luna Claire's expression. Not wanting to draw attention to herself, Luna Claire slightly bowed in greeting. Feeling Darius Knight approaching, a chill ran down her spine, and her legs felt as though they were nailed to the ground. Move now. That would only prove her guilt, wouldn't it? But staying put wouldn't save her from becoming the target of everyone's disdain either.
Your Grace, the goddess greets the Duke. May the Duke be blessed with eternal fortune.
Just as Luna Claire was caught in a whirlwind of thoughts, a soft, sweet voice interrupted. Vivian Claire. Luna Claire turned her head in surprise and delight, and sure enough, Vivian Claire stood not far behind her. At that moment, Vivian Claire wore an elegant outfit made of light purple cloud-patterned fabric, exuding grace and sophistication. Her figure was slender and enchanting. Though her face was veiled, it didn't detract from her beauty. Instead, it added a mysterious allure. Truthfully, the sight was stunning, but only Luna Claire knew the terrifying truth hidden beneath that veil. A face so dreadful that most wouldn't dare to look directly at it. In short, Luna Claire could only summarize Vivian Claire's appearance with 4 words: admirably courageous. A mischievous thought suddenly crossed Luna Claire's mind. If Vivian Claire's veil were to fall, how chaotic would the scene become? Still, Vivian Claire's arrival had saved Luna Claire from her predicament. After all, someone else was now in the spotlight, right? With that in mind, Luna Claire ignored Darius Knight's piercing glare and calmly stepped aside, making way for Vivian Claire.
Ah, I see now. I was wondering why Duke Darius would approach that unattractive girl. Turns out he had his eyes on the second Miss Claire.
Someone exclaimed in sudden realization.
That's right. If it's the second Miss Claire, it's not surprising. After all, she is known as the most beautiful and talented woman.
Someone outwardly expressed admiration, but their tone was filled with bitterness. Meanwhile, others looked at Vivian Clare with eyes full of envy and admiration, wishing they could also catch Duke Darius's attention. Vivian Clare assumed Darius Knight had come for her. Hearing the surrounding whispers, her eyes brimmed with pride, her demeanor grew even more bashful, and she kept glancing toward Darius Knight. Anyone could see her intentions toward him, unless they were blind. At this moment, Luna Clare finally understood the true purpose of the grand event organized by the Prime Minister's residence. Using her name to host a welcoming banquet, but in reality, it was to create an opportunity for Vivian Clare to approach Darius Knight. The Prime Minister truly put in the effort. But did he know Vivian Clare's current condition? Thinking this, Luna Clare couldn't help but glance at Arthur Clare, the one trailing behind Darius Knight. Arthur Clare appeared satisfied, watching Vivian Clare with a victorious gleam in his eyes. It seemed he didn't know after all. Well, this would be interesting. Luna Clare eagerly anticipated how Vivian Clare would try to seduce Darius Knight, with a face even uglier than her own. With that thought, Luna Clare cast a glance at Darius Knight before heading toward the pavilion she had noticed earlier. The spot was slightly elevated and located at the edge, avoiding the crowd while offering her a perfect vantage point to watch the drama unfold. A win-win situation. Darius Knight had always been paying attention to Luna Clare. Seeing her leave a mocking smile at someone else's pain before turning away, a flicker of displeasure crossed his eyes. This woman had provoked him twice already without apologizing, and now she wanted to stand aside and watch the drama unfold. Did she ask his permission for that? Did he agree? Just as he was about to follow her, Vivian Clare approached him shyly and bashfully. Without even sparing her a glance, Darius Knight brushed past her, heading straight in the direction Luna Clare had gone. Seeing this, Arthur Clare hurriedly stepped forward.
"Your Grace, the inner quarters have prepared a banquet ahead. Perhaps your Grace would—"
Before he could finish, Arthur Clare was interrupted by Darius Knight's cold, sharp gaze.
"I find the scenery in the garden quite pleasing."
With that, he continued walking. Since Duke Darius had declared the garden scenery beautiful, how could Arthur Clare dare to argue? Hastily, he ordered the banquet to be moved to the garden and quickly followed after Darius Knight. Luna Clare, thinking about the amusing spectacle she might soon witness, felt her mood lighten considerably. Even her steps toward the pavilion became noticeably more buoyant. But just as she chose her seat and was about to adjust her view for comfort, her gaze suddenly froze. Was she hallucinating? Why did it look like Darius Knight was heading in her direction, with an entire entourage trailing behind him?
"You insolent girl! Seeing Duke Darius, and yet you remain seated without paying respects?"
Arthur Clare, noticing Luna Clare still sitting unmoving, feared she might anger Duke Darius and bring trouble upon Clare Manor. He immediately roared at her. Snapping back to reality, Luna Clare's heart sank bitterly. So, it wasn't a hallucination after all. Feeling the dagger-like stares from the people behind Darius Knight, Luna Clare begrudgingly clenched her teeth and curtsied.
"Greetings, Duke Darius."
Darius Knight only looked at Luna Clare, saying nothing. Arthur Clare, seeing this, hurriedly explained,
"Your Grace, please calm your anger. My daughter grew up in the countryside and lacks proper manners. If she has offended you in any way, I beg for your forgiveness." "It's fine,"
Darius Knight's deep voice replied.
"But if the offenses continue, what should be done?"
Arthur Clare detected the reproach in his tone and felt a chill in his heart. However, he tried to maintain his composure.
"Naturally, it will be up to your Grace to decide."
Darius Knight nodded in response, seemingly pleased with the answer. Just as Arthur Clare sighed in relief, Darius stepped into the pavilion and sat down beside Luna Clare. Luna Claire. Shouldn't he have said,
"You may rise"?
Keeping this bowing posture is tiring. Luna Claire's thoughts seemed unnoticed by everyone until Eleanor Claire arrived with maids, setting tea and snacks on the stone table in the pavilion. Still, no one paid her any attention. After all, Duke Darius hadn't spoken yet. Who would dare to interfere? Seeing that no one cared about her, Luna Claire thought for a moment, then straightened up and calmly sat down beside Darius Knight. This pavilion was hers first. This spot was hers first. There was no reason she couldn't sit here. However, Luna Claire's action made everyone collectively gasp. Chapter 35. Does he seem that easy to approach? Those present couldn't believe Luna Claire's audacity, daring to sit next to Duke Darius. Everyone drew sharp breaths. Immediately, murderous glares from the other ladies were directed at Luna Claire. This ugly woman, how could she lack such self-awareness? She was hideous yet dared to taint the perfect presence of Duke Darius. Did she not realize that her stark contrast to him only made her ugliness more unbearable to behold? The noble ladies were furious, but the angriest of all was Vivian Claire, dressed in a purple gown. At this moment, she glared at Luna Claire with hatred, wishing she could drill a hole through her with her gaze. That was her spot. The person sitting beside Duke Darius should have been her. What right did this wretched woman have to take her place? Luna Claire's actions made Arthur Clare break out in a cold sweat, feeling that the Clare Manor was about to be ruined by this unfilial daughter. Especially when seeing Luna Claire showing no sense of propriety, reaching out to take the piece of cake originally prepared for Duke Darius, Arthur Clare was even more stunned. He could not acknowledge having such a daughter. This daughter would ruin Clare Manor. Furious, Arthur Clare exchanged glances with Eleanor Clare. Understanding his intent, Eleanor Clare quickly knelt before Darius Knight.
"Your Grace, it's all due to my failure in teaching her properly that Luna has become so unruly. I am willing to accept punishment on her behalf. Please, Your Grace, spare her life, considering that she is still young."
Cough, cough. Luna Claire nearly choked on the cake. Facing the icy aura beside her and countless dagger-like stares from across the room was manageable. But Eleanor Claire's words nearly cost her life. Under numerous scrutinizing gazes, Luna Claire calmly placed the half-eaten piece of cake back onto the plate. Darius Knight glanced at the saliva-covered cake on the plate, the veins on his forehead twitching, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily tightening. This woman, did she not know what the word death meant? The audacity to act so brazenly in front of him. She might be the only one capable of such a thing. As Eleanor Claire finished speaking, the gazes of the ladies who had followed her to the garden immediately shifted. Initially, they all thought Eleanor Claire was a harsh stepmother, maintaining only superficial politeness with her. But now, it seemed the rumors weren't entirely reliable. Because of this, their looks toward Eleanor Claire gained a touch of sincerity, while their disdain for Luna Claire deepened. Luna Claire paid no mind to this change. After all, these ladies had nothing to do with her. At the moment, she was only concerned about one thing: what Duke Darius Knight would do next. Her actions today could be described as walking a dangerous tightrope. One misstep, and disaster would strike. She was gambling that Darius Knight wouldn't harm her. Because, if her guess was correct, the poison and parasitic worms in Darius Knight's body would flare up periodically. Based on her observations, his poison had undergone an evolution. Now, when it acted up, she might be the only one capable of suppressing it. At this point, she suspected, Darius Knight had also realized after that night. Otherwise, she wouldn't have escaped so easily last time in the Imperial Garden. No matter how skilled her martial arts were, she knew full well they couldn't compare to the agility and inner strength of this era. Thus, her earlier actions were merely a test of Duke Darius's limits. If she emerged unscathed today, it would prove she still held value in his eyes. Everyone held their breath, waiting. Darius looked at Luna Claire and commanded, "Pour the tea." At some point, Darius's teacup had emptied. Luna Claire glared at Darius, her eyes seemingly saying, "I'm not your maid. Why should I pour tea for you? If you don't want to die early, you'd better behave." A voice echoed in Luna Claire's mind. Startled, Luna Claire stared at Darius in disbelief. He hadn't opened his mouth, yet she clearly heard his voice. Could this be the legendary sound transmission technique? Oh my! So cool, she wanted to learn it. Thinking so, Luna Claire immediately stood up obediently, poured tea for Darius, and even smiled flatteringly at him. Darius quietly turned his face away. He no longer wanted tea. The smile of this ugly woman made him feel nauseous. "Your Grace, will you teach me inner energy techniques?" Luna Claire, oblivious to her own unattractiveness, softly asked Darius. Darius Knight. Did he look that approachable? "Your Grace, your sound transmission technique is truly impressive. Can you teach me?" Luna Claire persisted. Darius Knight, is it possible to strangle this chatterbox of a woman? The flirty exchanges between the two were unbearable for the other women watching. They could only glare at Luna Claire with envy, wishing they could either kill her with their stares or drag her out of the pavilion to take her place. So jealous. To maintain peace, Darius Knight ultimately decided to ignore Luna Claire altogether, shifting his attention to Eleanor Claire, who was still kneeling. "Madam Prime Minister, are you certain you want to take responsibility for Miss Claire's repeated offenses against me?" Darius Knight's voice was devoid of emotion, making it impossible to discern his thoughts. Hearing the words, "repeated offenses," Eleanor Claire's heart sank, a foreboding feeling rising within her. But the words had already been spoken, and it was too late to take them back. She could only grit her teeth and continue. "Although Luna is not my biological daughter, I am her mother and should take responsibility for her actions. In that case, Miss Claire's offense against me in the palace last time, combined with today's..." Darius Knight deliberately paused. Hearing that Luna Claire had previously offended him, Eleanor Claire nearly fainted. Offending Duke Darius was no trivial matter. Originally, I intended to spare Luna Claire out of respect for the Prime Minister's hard work, but since Madam insists on accepting punishment in front of me, then take 20 lashes yourself." The cold, indifferent voice echoed without a hint of leniency. Even though the subject was the Prime Minister's wife, who held a noble title, she was no exception. At this moment, everyone seemed to grasp part of the situation. It turned out that Duke Darius didn't care at all about the rural girl's rudeness. Instead, the Prime Minister's wife had stubbornly insisted on taking the punishment, making it seem overly deliberate. If she truly cared for the daughter born of another woman, she wouldn't have allowed her to marry in place of her own daughter. Eleanor Claire's actions were nothing more than a facade for the sake of reputation. Those keen enough had already seen through Eleanor Claire's intentions, and a flicker of schadenfreude flashed in their eyes. To think she would dare to pull such petty household schemes in front of Duke Darius. Clearly, she was courting disaster. This Duke Darius was not someone anyone could exploit so easily. At this moment, Arthur Clare suddenly came to his senses, realizing the crux of the situation. Cold sweat immediately soaked through his clothes. When his gaze met Darius Knight's icy violet eyes, Arthur Clare nearly fell to his knees. Now, resentment began to brew in his heart toward Eleanor Clare for daring to play such tricks in front of Duke Darius, but it was already too late. Eleanor Clare, unwilling to face punishment, hesitated. She was, after all, the Prime Minister's wife. If she endured 20 lashes, she would lose all dignity. Thus, she could only cast a pleading glance toward Arthur Clare. But Arthur Clare, struggling to protect himself, was in no position to plead on Eleanor Clare's behalf. Seeing Eleanor Clare standing motionless for so long, Darius Knight shifted his gaze slightly toward the empty space ahead. In an instant, a cold, black-clad guard appeared before everyone. At the sight of this figure, the faces of all present turned pale. The crowd was still bewildered when Willow Clare, who had always been waiting for a chance to trample on Luna Clare, quickly slipped next to Vivian Clare. Her face showed a mix of heartbreak and indignation as she looked at Luna Clare.
"Big sister, it's one thing for you to be
disrespectful to Mother and not heed her teachings while at home, but why today would you push Mother into a deadly situation? Do you think your actions are worthy of Mother's devotion to you?"
As soon as Willow Clare finished speaking, Vivian Clare trembled, gripping Willow's hand. The two sisters exchanged a deeply emotional glance, making Luna Clare appear even more isolated. The gossiping crowd rarely thought for themselves. They followed wherever others led them. Because of the accusations from the two sisters, they immediately forgot everything that had happened earlier and turned to defend the pair, casting looks of disdain at Luna Clare as if she were an ungrateful wretch. At this moment, Eleanor Clare had already been sobbing since Vivian Clare spoke up in her defense, portraying herself as a pitiful and wrong stepmother. As for Arthur Clare, though he didn't dare plead for Eleanor Clare in front of Darius Knight, he certainly didn't want his wife to be publicly punished. Now that his daughters were interceding for Eleanor Clare, he was naturally pleased. The reputation of Luna Clare? That had never been a concern of Arthur Clare. Luna Clare looked at the people before her, feeling utterly speechless. Did they think her silence meant she was easy to bully? Though she didn't care much about her reputation, did she look like someone who would let others openly slander her? Dropping the amused expression she had while watching the drama unfold, she coldly glanced at Willow Clare and Vivian Clare, the corner of her mouth curling into a mocking smile. "Earlier, you said I wanted to marry the Duke Consort, and Mother indulged me. Then, do you admit that the marriage decree from His Majesty was originally for you?" As soon as Luna Clare finished her sentence, Vivian Clare's face changed. How did she not think of this? If she admitted Luna Clare's words, wouldn't it mean that the Clare Manor deceived the Emperor and schemed in front of him? But if she didn't admit it, then everything she had just said. Furthermore, you said Mother took the punishment on my behalf? Did you forget Duke Darius's words just now? He never intended to punish me in the first place, so how could she take the punishment for me? Are you blaming me, or are you blaming Duke Darius? Luna Clare's question struck a nerve, leaving Vivian Clare without a shred of defense. Neither the Emperor nor Duke Darius could be offended by the Clare Manor. She had only wanted to deal with Luna Clare, but had inadvertently backed herself into a corner. This realization made Vivian Clare's face grow even paler. Chapter 37. The nightmare of the capital. Luna Clare no longer paid any attention to Vivian Clare. Instead, she turned her gaze to Willow Clare, who had quietly let go of Vivian Clare's hand and stepped back. "Willow, you said I wanted to harm Mother? Have I ever said anything from start to finish? Or are you using this accusation against me to insinuate something about someone else?" Willow Clare was nowhere near as capable as Vivian Clare. Hearing Luna Clare's words, she was so frightened that she dropped to her knees with a loud thud. The stone floor outside the pavilion was paved with green tiles, and kneeling on it must have been painful. But Willow Clare didn't care. She hurriedly begged Darius Knight for mercy. "Your Grace, I absolutely have no intention of implying anything about you. Please, Your Grace, judge fairly." Even the main wife feared Duke Darius, let alone a mere concubine-born daughter like her. Willow Clare's face was pale, her entire body trembling, and she didn't dare to lift her head to look at Darius Knight. Darius Knight paid no attention to unrelated individuals, silently observing Luna Clare, curious to see how she would resolve the situation. Unexpectedly, he found her sharp-witted. This woman, sometimes so irritating he wanted to give her a beating, sometimes as slippery as an eel, and other times so talkative he wanted to silence her. Yet, at this moment, seeing her sharpness, he unexpectedly found her pleasing to the eye. Thinking this, the corners of Darius Knight's lips lifted slightly. Benedict Rock happened to catch this scene, his cold eyes flickering with surprise, and his gaze unconsciously lingered on Luna Claire. Was this the peculiar taste Victor Moore had spoken of? As this thought crossed his mind, Benedict Rock suddenly felt a sharp gaze directed at him. His back instinctively straightened. Meeting his master's warning look, Benedict Rock's usually stiff face twitched slightly before he coldly marched toward Eleanor Claire. Seeing Benedict Rock heading her way, Eleanor Claire immediately abandoned any pretense of dignity, begging Darius Knight for mercy. "Your Grace, please spare me. I dare not offend again, Your Grace." Before she could finish her plea, Benedict Rock grabbed her like a chicken and dragged her out of the crowd. Her screams echoed as the onlookers automatically parted to make way. It was then that the crowd noticed a long bench and a large wooden plank prepared behind them at some point. A collective gasp of shock rippled through them. Could it be that Duke Darius intended to carry out punishment publicly? If that were the case, how could Eleanor Claire ever show her face again? However, Eleanor Claire's future reputation was clearly not a concern for Darius Knight or Benedict Rock. In no time, Eleanor Claire was tied up, and Benedict Rock picked up the large plank, beginning the punishment. Each strike was steady and forceful. Eleanor Claire's anguished screams filled the air, sending chills down the spines of those watching. Some even began to pity her. Had she known it would come to this, she should have willingly accepted her punishment earlier. After all, no servant in the general's manor could possibly be as ruthless as Benedict Rock. By the 10th strike, Eleanor Claire's screams abruptly ceased. She had clearly fainted. Yet, Benedict Rock's hand did not pause, his expression unchanging. Witnessing this scene, everyone's faces turned pale. Vivian Claire nearly ground her teeth to dust, her hatred for Luna Claire growing deeper. When the 20th strike concluded, Benedict Rock tossed the plank to the ground and walked away with a cold expression. Eleanor Claire lay motionless, like a dead pig tied to the bench. Naturally, the servants of Clare Manor would handle her from there. This was no longer Benedict Rock's responsibility. Once Benedict Rock resumed his position beside Darius Knight, the Duke slowly lifted his gaze to Arthur Clare, who stood outside the pavilion. "The Prime Minister has raised 2 excellent daughters." The statement was devoid of emotion, yet it caused Arthur Clare to break into a cold sweat. He immediately knelt before Darius Knight. "This old servant has failed in teaching his children, leading them to offend Duke Darius. I will strictly discipline them." Darius Knight seemed unwilling to pursue the matter further, and gave a slight nod. Arthur Clare let out a sigh of relief, stood up, and immediately ordered, "Someone take Lady Clare away and confine her to the ancestral hall." While giving his instructions, Arthur Clare discreetly glanced at Darius Knight, trying to gauge whether he was satisfied with the arrangement. However, Darius Knight had already shifted his gaze elsewhere, showing no interest at all. Arthur Clare felt both stifled by being ignored and relieved that Darius Knight didn't express dissatisfaction or escalate the punishment. Vivian Clare and Willow Clare looked pale and grim, not daring to utter a single word of protest. Without even waiting for the servants, they obediently walked out on their own. Having witnessed Eleanor Clare's precedent, they dared not show even the slightest displeasure. Yet today, Clare Manor seemed plagued by endless turmoil. Just as Vivian Clare had taken a few steps, an unexpected incident occurred. A sudden "ah" was heard as Melody Green, who had been standing by watching the drama unfold with Willow Clare, suddenly stumbled and fell. In doing so, she accidentally collided with Vivian Clare and, in one swift motion, yanked off her veil. In that instant, the entire pavilion fell deathly silent,
so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. All eyes turned toward Vivian Claire's face, their expressions a mix of disbelief and sheer horror. What kind of face was revealed? Her forehead and chin remained intact, but the rest of her face was covered in a dense outbreak of pustules, so severe it was horrifying to behold. Was this truly the most beautiful woman in the capital? No, this was nothing short of a terrifying nightmare. This face could indeed haunt someone's dreams. Some of the more faint-hearted young ladies fainted from fright, while others turned away and retched. The once admiring gazes toward Vivian Claire had now completely transformed into expressions of disgust. Vivian Claire seemed to have just regained her composure, completely unprepared for her veil to suddenly fall. Witnessing the disdainful and mocking gazes, Vivian Claire could no longer bear it, let out a scream, and fainted. At this moment, Arthur Clare, standing behind Vivian Claire, finally saw her face. His eyes, once full of calculation, gradually widened in shock until they lost all focus entirely.
Master! Prime Minister!
The crowd descended into chaos once again. Unable to withstand the series of blows, Arthur Clare collapsed on the spot. Witnessing the scene before him, Darius Knight's gaze remained calm and unperturbed. He simply stood, cast a meaningful glance at Luna Clare, and strode out of the pavilion. Benedict Rock hurriedly followed behind him. Meanwhile, Luna Clare, left alone in the pavilion, guiltily touched her nose. It seemed she had just been caught doing something bad. The welcoming banquet at Clare Manor ended in chaos as the three hosts fainted one after another, leaving the guests to disperse. It was clear that today's events at Clare Manor would become the laughingstock of the entire capital. However, Luna Clare was entirely unbothered. After teaching those who needed to be taught a lesson, she cheerfully took Lily, who had been hiding in a corner, to the kitchen in search of food. Meanwhile, in the main courtyard, Arthur Clare, who had fainted earlier, suddenly opened his eyes. They were dark and stormy, as if harboring an endless tempest. Chapter 38. The eyes that seek to push her to death. As night began to fall, the kitchen of the general's manor grew busy, preparing dinner and medicine for the household heads. Lily, as usual, went to the kitchen to fetch food for Luna Clare. But on her way back, in a secluded and quiet corner, she was stopped.
Third Mississippi.
Seeing Willow Clare, Lily couldn't help but feel a twinge of panic. Willow Clare glared fiercely at Lily before dragging her to an even more secluded spot.
What? Just a few months away, and you've forgotten who your master is?
Willow Clare sneered, her eyes filled with mockery as she looked at Lily. If not for their father fainting today, both she and her second sister would likely have faced the punishment of kneeling in the ancestral hall. This anger she couldn't swallow no matter what. Moreover, because of Luna Clare, the King of Chi was grounded by the Emperor, and she hadn't seen Duke Consort for many days, making her even more dissatisfied with Luna Clare. The resentment building up inside her made her always want to do something, and tonight, with both her father and mother unwell, it was clearly a rare opportunity. Hearing this, Lily hurriedly lowered her head.
Lily certainly knows who her master is.
Seeing Lily being obedient, Willow Clare felt a bit pleased. She took out a small paper packet from her chest and handed it to Lily.
Tonight, put this into Luna Clare's food.
The moment Lily saw the packet of medicine, she immediately stepped back in fear, nearly dropping the meal box in her hands.
Third Miss Lily. Lily doesn't dare.
Seeing Lily like this, a malicious glint flashed in Willow Clare's eyes.
You don't dare? Didn't you do it so well last time? Why wouldn't you dare this time?
Lily didn't dare to respond, and cold sweat had already soaked through her clothes.
Let me tell you this, if you manage to do it once, you can do it twice. If you don't follow my orders tonight, don't think you'll come out of this unscathed. I believe you understand this better than anyone else.
Every word was a threat, striking directly into Lily's heart. And Lily truly understood, because not a few maids had been beaten to death in the 3rd Mrs. Courtyard. Seeing Lily's frightened expression, Willow Clare felt very satisfied. Without wasting more words, she directly stuffed the medicine into Lily's hand and turned to leave. Holding the meal box, Lily returned to the west garden with a heavy heart. Luna Clare noticed Lily's distracted state, and a peculiar glint flashed in her eyes, but she said nothing. It wasn't until Luna Clare was about to have her meal that Lily still hadn't regained her composure. Clink! The sound of chopsticks being placed on the table. Lily snapped out of her daze, meeting Luna Clare's cold gaze, and hurriedly knelt down.
Miss, I don't want disloyal people around me,
Luna Clare said coldly. Although Lily had fulfilled her duties in recent days, and returned the things she had previously deceived the original owner of, Luna Clare still didn't trust her. Hearing this, Lily bit her lower lip tightly, then raised her head.
Miss!
As the night deepened, Clare Manor was enveloped in silence. A tall, burly figure stealthily crept into the western side of Clare Manor, heading straight for the west garden where Luna Clare resided. Reaching the door, the figure drew a curved blade from his waist and quietly unlatched the door. Everything went smoothly. Once inside the room, seeing the slight rise of the blanket on the bed, the figure hesitated for a moment. But soon, he broke into a lewd grin and stepped toward the bed.
I heard the eldest daughter of Clare Manor is hideous, a mere country bumpkin. If it weren't for the money, I wouldn't even bother sleeping with her,
the burly figure muttered as he approached. Then, he lunged forward to grab the blanket on the bed. What happened next was swift. From the side of the bed, a slender figure darted out with agile movements, holding a silver needle, and struck straight at the burly man. The man, thinking the person was still lying on the bed, was completely unguarded. Although he had some martial skills, the needle still managed to pierce his skin. At the same time, his hand yanked off the blanket, revealing only pillows underneath.
You wretched woman, daring to toy with me,
the man roared angrily.
Just wait, soon enough, you'll be begging for mercy under me.
As he spoke, he threw a punch toward Luna Clare. Luna Clare, not underestimating her opponent, easily dodged the strong punch by leaning back. At the same time, she quickly realized that this man only possessed mediocre martial skills, and she let out a sigh of relief. After all, in this ancient era, if she had encountered a martial arts master with superior skills, her limited abilities would have been no match. In a series of dodges, Luna Clare fiercely aimed several kicks at the man's vulnerable spots, causing him to cry out in pain. Very quickly, Luna Clare seized the opportunity, swiftly throwing a silver needle into the pressure point of the tall man. Before he could react, a loud thud was heard, and he collapsed onto the ground. Looking at the man sprawled lifelessly on the floor, Luna Clare's gaze turned icy. Willow Clare had used the same trick against her time and time again, so she couldn't be blamed for returning the favor. And this man, specifically prepared by Willow Clare for her, was best returned to his cinder. Thinking this, Luna Clare was about to bend down and lift the man. But at that very moment, she sensed an intense killing intent rushing toward her from behind. Not good. There was more than one enemy. Luna Clare's pupils contracted suddenly, but her movements didn't falter. She dodged to the side with her fastest speed, narrowly avoiding a palm strike infused with inner strength. However, before she could even catch her breath, another wave of killing intent charged at her face from a different direction. This time, she saw clearly. The attacker was dressed in black, masked, and moved with an agility as if flying. No matter how fast she was, she couldn't compete with such light-footed martial arts. Was this where her life would end? She was unwilling to accept it. Yet, Even in the face of death, Luna Claire showed no fear. She didn't close her eyes, but stared straight into the eyes of the masked man charging toward her. It seemed as though, by memorizing those eyes, she could seek revenge in her next life, even in death. But strangely, at that moment, another pair of eyes flashed in her mind, eyes that had once sought to take her life, belonging to a woman. Yet, she had no memory of such an event. The unwillingness in her eyes was quickly replaced by confusion, but it all happened in a split second, leaving Luna Claire no time to dwell on it. However, the death she awaited never came. She watched as the masked man charging toward her suddenly collapsed in front of her, dying with his eyes wide open. The remaining masked man, seeing his comrade fail, stood back with arms crossed, waiting to finish Luna Claire himself. But to his surprise, he witnessed this shocking scene. He stepped forward, intending to investigate who had acted from the shadows, but as soon as he took a single step, his body froze and fell to the ground, lifeless. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Luna Claire did not glance at the two bodies on the ground, instead staying alert and scanning her surroundings.
Who's there?
Chapter 39. I told you to carry the man. Why are you carrying me? Luna Claire looked around, trying to find the person who had secretly assisted her, but her efforts were in vain. This left Luna Claire feeling somewhat defeated. In the modern world, she had been a legendary medical specialist and operative of the Bureau of Artifice, her sharp instincts and vigilance being unmatched within the organization. Yet in this ancient era, she felt a sense of helplessness. This fueled her desire to grow stronger. Turning around, Luna Claire intended to sit on the bed and catch her breath, but as soon as she turned her head, she was startled to see someone already sitting on her bed. When had they gotten there? Moreover, it was a man. Even in the dim light, Luna Claire could see him clearly. The man wore a purple robe and a matching mask. Beneath the mask was a pair of stunning purple eyes. Although the color was the same, Luna Claire did not believe the man before her was Darius Knight. Darius Knight also wore purple and had purple eyes, but his demeanor was cold, exuding an overbearing aura that seemed to dominate the world. The man on the bed, however, was entirely different. He radiated an air of seductive mystery. Furthermore, while both men had purple eyes, Darius Knight's were deep and dark, while the man before her had eyes that resembled amethyst, clear yet mesmerizing. For some reason, his eyes gave her an odd feeling, as if a thin veil of mist obscured them, making them impenetrable yet irresistibly captivating.
Thank you for your assistance tonight,
Luna Claire said without hesitation after observing him. Though she didn't know who the man was or why he had come to her in the dead of night, the fact that he had saved her was undeniable, and gratitude was necessary. The man's lips curled into a devilish smile, his voice carrying a husky allure.
Want to thank me? Then repay me with
your body.
Hearing such words, Luna Claire's mouth couldn't help but twitch.
Do you have some kind of eye condition?
She asked. Otherwise, no ordinary man would make such a request to someone as unattractive as her. The man on the bed, however, was not offended. Instead, he shifted into a more relaxed position, leaning against the headboard, his aura of seductive charm growing even stronger.
I don't have an eye condition, but you suit my taste perfectly.
Luna Claire. She couldn't tell if the man before her truly had vision problems, or if he was hiding some kind of defect himself. But could someone with such beautiful eyes and a captivating voice really be unattractive? She found it hard to believe. In any case, Luna Claire decided not to dwell on the matter. Based on their somewhat ridiculous exchange, she concluded that the man posed no threat to her. As for whether he had ulterior motives for coming here tonight, she didn't know. For now, she was safe. With that thought, Luna Claire walked over to the two bodies lying in the middle of the room, her gaze turning cold. Were these two sent by Willow Clare to kill her? Why did something about this feel off? If Willow Clare had already sent people to ruin her, what was the point of sending assassins now? Wasn't that redundant? But if it wasn't Willow Clare, then who else wanted her dead? Unable to figure it out, Luna Clare chose not to dwell on the question further. Instead, she turned to look at the man on the bed.
You've already acted heroically tonight. Please help me dispose of these bodies,
she said. She still had tasks to complete tonight, and wouldn't have time to deal with them herself. The man lying on the bed raised an eyebrow slightly upon hearing that.
Why should I help you?
Luna Clare, it seems he really has no reason to help me.
Consider it as me owing you a favor. I promise to repay it someday.
Luna Clare stared directly at the man on the bed, her gaze incredibly serious. The man froze for a moment, as if he saw an unyielding determination and resilience, qualities only found in the strong, reflected in Luna Clare's eyes. For some reason, he instinctively nodded. As soon as he nodded, his face under the mask darkened with 3 black lines. Since when did I become so easy to talk to? Unaware of the man's inner thoughts, Luna Clare saw him nod and let out a sigh of relief. She expressed her gratitude and walked straight toward the unconscious man on the floor. She bent down, reached out, and in an instant hoisted the man, who was half a head taller than her, onto her shoulder with swift and decisive movements. However, the man on the bed, whose expression had already turned grim, now looked even darker, as if a thundercloud had descended. In the blink of an eye, Luna Clare suddenly felt her shoulder lighten. The burly man she had just lifted was now being carried by the masked man. The hidden subordinates watching the scene almost revealed themselves, staring wide-eyed at their master. Their master? Carrying a burly man? Wasn't their master someone who was obsessively clean and hated being touched by others? Even they, his closest subordinates, would be flung aside if they accidentally brushed against him. And now, he was voluntarily carrying a burly man. Was he dreaming? Luna Clare blankly stared at her now empty hand, then looked at the man across from her, blinking in confusion before helplessly saying,
I told you to help me deal with the body, not him.
I know. The man's voice held a hint of irritation. Luna Clare, if you knew, why are you interfering?
What do you intend to do?
The man looked at Luna Clare, a mischievous glint flashing in his eyes.
Since I've decided to help you, I'll see it through to the end. After all, you owe me a favor now.
The hidden subordinates. Since when did the master need favors from others? Does the master even need anyone's favor? The hidden subordinates almost lost their footing in shock. Moments later, one of them received a warning glance from the master and immediately retreated in fear. Luna Clare thought to herself that while she could handle it on her own, having free labor didn't seem like a bad deal. Thinking so, Luna Clare nodded immediately.
All right, you help me carry him to Willow Clare's courtyard.
As soon as she finished speaking, Luna Clare was about to lead the way when her body suddenly lifted into the air. Before she could even react, she found herself outside in the yard, the cold wind rushing past her face. Blinking her eyes to confirm she wasn't dreaming, Luna Clare's face darkened.
I told you to carry that man. Why are you carrying me?
Luna Clare felt her patience was about to run out today. Hearing this, the man lowered his head to look at Luna Clare, who was puffing her cheeks, his light purple eyes glinting with amusement.
He's not worthy of me acting personally.
Luna Clare, she was about to retort.
If he's not worthy, you should have said so earlier.
When she felt her feet touch the ground. Luna Clare, this lightness skill was truly fast. In just a moment, they had already arrived at Willow Clare's courtyard. However, this debt still needed to be settled. After all, what use was it for her to come here? She needed that man, whom she had knocked down, to be brought here. Otherwise, how could she exact her revenge? Thinking this, Luna Claire turned her head and glared at the man in front of her. You? Boom. Just as Luna Claire opened her mouth, a heavy sound echoed from afar. She followed the direction of the noise and was instantly at a loss for words. Chapter 40. The portrait being spied upon. Willow Claire, who was sound asleep, suddenly felt someone staring at her and woke up with a start. Ah! Seeing that there was indeed someone sitting by her bed, Willow Claire screamed in fright, nearly falling to the ground. Normally, there would be guards stationed in the room next to Willow Claire, but her scream was like a stone tossed into a lake, causing only slight ripples before fading away with no response. After the initial shock, Willow Claire gradually regained her composure. Under the moonlight streaming through the window, she clearly saw the figure sitting by her bed. Luna Claire. Recognizing Luna Claire, Willow Claire grew even more alarmed, a flicker of guilt flashing in her eyes. Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to? Aren't I supposed to what? Third sister, you seem quite scared to see me. Luna Claire smiled at Willow Claire, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Having had a moment to calm down, Willow Claire became more composed. Seeing Luna Claire looking at her like that, she couldn't help but feel irritated. Luna Claire, why aren't you sleeping and instead coming here to scare people? Do you want me to tell Father? When no one else was around, Willow Claire always revealed her true self to Luna Claire. To Luna Claire, this side of her was far more endearing than her usual pretentious demeanor. Chapter 40. The portrait being spied upon. Humph, are you going to tell him that you sent someone to kill me? Luna Claire sneered, her sharp gaze fixed on Willow Claire, not missing a single expression on her face. Hearing Luna Claire's words, Willow Claire looked as if she was about to explode, glaring at Luna Claire. When did I ever send someone to kill you? Don't falsely accuse me. I only said someone to. At this point, Willow Claire abruptly stopped speaking, her eyes revealing a trace of panic as she looked at Luna Claire. Why am I fine? Luna Claire finished the sentence Willow Claire hadn't completed. Willow Claire nodded mechanically, her eyes filled with unease. Because the one in trouble will be you. Luna Claire smiled innocently, but her gaze was icy. Willow Claire, time and time again you've poisoned me. Do you think I'll let you off so easily? Hearing this, the fear in Willow Claire's heart deepened. Suddenly, thinking of Lily, Willow Claire's eyes flashed with malice. She was about to speak when she suddenly felt something strange in her body. Luna Claire, what have you done to me? Willow Claire's voice turned shrill, revealing the panic she was feeling at that moment. What you wanted to do to me, I naturally returned to you. Luna Claire replied calmly. She had merely upgraded the type of drug Willow Claire had used. She was never one to show mercy to those who harmed her. Her true nature was to repay every grudge in full. Feeling that enough time had passed, Luna Claire slowly stood up. Enjoy the company you brought upon yourself, she said before leaving Willow Claire's room. It was only then that Willow Claire noticed a man lying on the floor. Her eyes filled with panic. No! She couldn't let herself be ruined. She still wanted to become Mrs. Duke Consort. As a mere daughter of a concubine, becoming Mrs. Duke Consort was her only path forward. She couldn't fall into Luna Claire's trap. Thinking this, Willow Claire tried to rush out the door. But in her frantic state, she tripped over the man on the floor. The moment her body touched his, the drug in Willow Claire's system spiraled out of control, and her consciousness quickly faded. Standing outside Willow Claire's door, hearing the faint sounds of intimacy from within, Luna Claire's mood didn't lighten. Instead, it grew heavier. Judging by Willow Claire's reaction, those assassins truly hadn't been sent by her. This meant someone else was secretly targeting her life. Her situation was far more dangerous than she had imagined. The enemy was hidden in the shadows while she stood in the open, defenseless, and without any internal strength. It was an incredibly vulnerable position. She needed to find a way to protect herself. Taking a deep breath, she looked up toward the courtyard. The man in purple robes was no longer there. Luna Claire frowned slightly, but didn't dwell on it. She left Willow Claire's courtyard. Meanwhile, in a secluded area, the man in purple robes had already removed his mask, revealing a stunningly handsome face. That face, unique and unmatched, belonged to none other than Duke Darius Knight. The seductive aura that surrounded Darius Knight disappeared with the mask, leaving only a cold demeanor. His eyes reverted to their mysterious, deep purple hue. Not long after, someone appeared before Darius Knight. It was Victor Moore. With just a glance, without Darius Knight needing to speak, Victor Moore promptly reported,
"Master, I've investigated. Those assassins were sent by Prime Minister Claire."
Hearing this, Darius Knight's eyebrows furrowed slightly, his gaze growing sharper. Victor Moore. "Master, it wasn't me who tried to kill Lady Claire. Please don't direct your killing intent at me." Victor Moore wanted to cry, but didn't dare to, nor did he dare to speak much. Only heaven knew how he was punished by his master the last time he talked too much. However, the fact that Prime Minister Claire sent someone to kill her own daughter left Victor Moore utterly shaken. They often say a fierce tiger doesn't eat its cubs, but Prime Minister Claire was even crueler than a tiger.
"Did you find out anything else?"
Darius Knight withdrew his murderous aura and coldly looked at Victor Moore. Victor Moore shuddered and honestly replied,
"It seems Prime Minister Claire is connected to that person, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. I will continue to investigate."
Darius Knight said nothing further, merely waved his hand for Victor Moore to leave. Feeling as if he had been granted amnesty, Victor Moore quickly stood up and hurried away. When darkness enveloped the room, leaving only Darius Knight alone, the determined gaze of Luna Claire surfaced in his mind. Thinking about her situation, an unfamiliar feeling arose in his heart. Perhaps he wasn't so alone after all. Back in her room, Luna Claire noticed that the corpse had disappeared, and there wasn't even a trace of the fight left behind. She couldn't help but admire the efficiency of the subordinates of the man in purple. Thinking about the play she had to perform the next morning, Luna Claire washed her face, preparing to rest well before dawn. As the thick layer of makeup washed away, the face revealed underneath was no longer the hideous one covered in terrifying black birthmarks. Under the faint moonlight, a flawless, porcelain-like face emerged, breathtakingly beautiful, as though a celestial maiden had descended to earth. But what captivated most was her sparkling eyes, as radiant as the stars. Just one glance was enough to leave anyone spellbound. This unparalleled beauty was something even Vivian Claire, once the most beautiful woman in the capital, could not compare to. No wonder Eleanor Claire wanted to destroy it, and Willow Claire went to great lengths to conceal it. When Darius Knight returned, the sight that greeted him was this stunning visage. He had never cared about a woman's appearance before, whether beautiful or ugly, but upon seeing Luna Claire's true face, his heart unexpectedly skipped a beat, and his amethyst eyes grew even deeper. Darius Knight didn't linger. He quickly vanished into the darkness. As for Luna Claire, she remained unaware that her true appearance had been seen by someone else. Chapter 41. Saving a life with the Heimlich maneuver. As dawn broke, Clare Manor was still enveloped in slumber when a piercing scream from Lovebird Garden, where Willow Claire resided, shattered the morning tranquility. The maids, servants, and fatigued guards, who had been patrolling through the night, quickly rushed toward Lovebird Garden. But when they arrived and saw the scene before them, everyone froze in shock. What did they see? They saw the usually delicate and fragile third young lady appearing as though she was assaulting a robust man. Moreover, even when surrounded by onlookers, the third young lady showed no sign of restraint. Hearing the commotion, everyone turned red with embarrassment,
Yet some younger guards and servants couldn't help but steal glances at Willow Clare, swallowing hard repeatedly. Arthur Clare, hearing the uproar, rushed over. Witnessing the scene, he was so furious he nearly fainted. After yelling at and dispersing the crowd of onlookers, Arthur Clare angrily kicked Willow Clare, who was still acting wildly. Willow Clare was knocked to the ground but remained unconscious, continuing to cling to the man, who had already passed out from exhaustion.
"Bring water! Wake her up!"
Arthur Clare growled, his face dark with rage. A basin of cold water was poured over her, and Willow Clare finally regained consciousness. Seeing everything around her and recalling her frenzied actions from the night before, her face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. When her gaze met Arthur Clare's murderous glare, terror filled Willow Clare's eyes. Moments later, Willow Clare seemed to lose her mind, throwing herself at Arthur Clare and crying out,
"Father, it was my elder sister. She set me up. You have to stand up for me."
Looking at Willow Clare's pitiful state, Arthur Clare once again showed no mercy and kicked her away.
Useless.
Leaving behind only that single word, Arthur Clare stormed out of Lovebird Garden. Once outside, he turned to the guard beside him and asked,
"Where is the eldest daughter?" "Master, the eldest lady went out early this morning."
Hearing this, a flicker of gloom flashed through Arthur Clare's eyes before he ordered,
"Investigate what's going on."
The results came quickly. Although Willow Clare insisted that Luna Clare had framed her, there was no evidence to support her claim. The physician examined her pulse. Willow Clare showed no signs of poisoning. Upon checking the records, it was clear that Willow Clare had personally brought the man into the manor. Even the maid who discovered the incident and screamed, causing a commotion throughout Clare Manor this morning, was a servant under Vivian Clare. In conclusion, outwardly, this matter had nothing to do with Luna Clare, and naturally, she could not be held accountable. Although Arthur Clare had issued a gag order, rumors of Willow Clare's scandalous behavior still spread everywhere. Of course, none of this had anything to do with Luna Clare. After tidying up everything in the morning, she went out. Her goal today was simple: to buy medicinal herbs. Knowing that someone was plotting against her, she couldn't just sit back and wait. At the very least, she needed to buy some herbs for self-protection. As for the money for the medicine, she thought, she'd find a way to earn it. Today, she decided to try her luck at Wanderer's Pavilion to see if she could meet William Knight. From her observations, the more time she gave patients to think, the more anxious they became. Patients desperate for treatment were always the ones who sought her out, so she guessed William Knight might not even wait for their appointment and would come looking for her himself. Thus, if she met William Knight, who had made up his mind, at Wanderer's Pavilion today, she wouldn't have to worry about money anymore. With this thought, Luna Clare's steps became much lighter. At that moment, a scene in front of a shop caught her attention. As she approached, the sound of a woman crying grew louder. She could vaguely hear phrases like, "The child is dead," and "Please stay strong." Luna Clare squeezed into the crowd, and saw that the shop surrounded by people was a pharmacy. In front of it, a woman was wailing mournfully, holding a boy around 5 or 6 years old in her arms. The boy seemed unconscious, his face pale and lips blue, with blood on his nose and signs of incontinence. At a glance, without needing to diagnose, Luna Clare immediately knew the child was choking due to food lodged in his airway. The situation was critical and required immediate intervention. Without hesitation, Luna Clare quickly took the child from the woman's arms, lifted him, and began performing the Heimlich maneuver. She wrapped her arms around the boy's waist, leaned him forward, and pressed firmly on his abdomen. The woman, who had been too distraught to understand what was happening, saw Luna Clare hitting her child and furiously lunged at her.
"What are you doing? Let my child go.
But how could Luna Claire's strength be compared to that of an ordinary woman? The woman couldn't even budge her in the slightest.
My child has already suffered enough, and now you're doing this to him? You cruel woman!
The woman cried as she tried to hit Luna Claire. Annoyed, Luna Claire coldly glanced at the woman.
If you don't want your child to truly die, shut your mouth and don't move.
If it weren't for the sake of saving a small life, she wouldn't bother with such a thankless task. Perhaps it was because Luna Claire's gaze was too terrifying, or maybe the woman understood her words and clung to a glimmer of hope, but she stood still. However, the surrounding crowd began to murmur.
This girl isn't just ugly but also heartless, not even sparing a dying child. The child is already dead. Even the doctor said there's no saving him, and yet she dares to claim she can bring him back? Who saves people like that? Truly a malicious heart. Lady, don't let yourself be deceived. The child is gone. You should arrange his funeral properly. Why let someone humiliate him like this?
The murmurs of the crowd eventually got to the woman. Just as she decided to risk it all to take back her child, a sudden coughing sound was heard. The boy in Luna Claire's arms coughed up a thick lump and then burst into loud cries. The crowd was stunned, unable to believe that the child declared dead had come back to life.
My precious baby, my heart aches for you.
Hearing her son's cries, the woman wept as she hurriedly embraced him. This time, Luna Claire did not stop her and simply handed the child over. She cast a glance at those who had just called her malicious. Under their ashamed gazes, Luna Claire quietly left. By the time the woman snapped out of her joy at regaining her son, Luna Claire's figure had long disappeared. At that moment, Luna Claire had already arrived at the Wanderer's Pavilion. From afar, she could see William Knight sitting on the steps in front of the pavilion like a gatekeeper. As expected, just as she had predicted, he couldn't wait any longer. However, the first thing William Knight said upon seeing Luna Claire made her so angry she nearly saw red. Chapter 42. No need for such trouble.
Hey, miss, did you get into a fight with a stray dog? Why do you look so messy?
Yes, this was the first thing William Knight said when he saw Luna Claire, successfully making her not want to respond to this chatterbox. Seeing Luna Claire act as if she hadn't seen him and walk right past, William Knight was taken aback, thinking he had mistaken her. He quickly ran to block her path, scrutinizing her from head to toe to confirm.
No mistake, this ugly face that even ghosts would fear. It can't be anyone else.
William Knight muttered to himself. Luna Claire, if you're going to insult someone, at least don't do it to their face. Are you asking for a beating?
Hey, miss, why are you pretending not to know me?
William Knight pouted in mock grievance. Heaven knows how anxiously he had been waiting for her. From the very next day, he had been camping out here, afraid he'd have to wait an entire month to see her again. A long, dragging month had passed, and he still didn't know where she was. What if she didn't show up? After all the effort of waiting, would she pretend not to know him again? Luna Claire remained silent, walking straight ahead. William Knight, helpless, could only trail behind her like a shadow. The #1 dandy of the capital, William Knight, following a plain-looking girl, it was indeed a sight that drew attention, causing many passers-by to turn and look. However, neither of them seemed to care about the curious gazes around them. Soon, they arrived at the Wanderer's Pavilion pharmacy. Just like before, Luna Claire walked straight to the counter, picked up a brush, and swiftly wrote down a list of medicinal ingredients, handing the paper to the shop assistant. The assistant, who had been waiting nearby, displayed a noticeably respectful demeanor. Taking the paper from Luna Claire's hand, he glanced at it briefly before heading inside. Luna Claire paid no mind to the assistant's attitude, assuming it was simply the Wanderer's Pavilion's excellent service. But in William Knight's eyes, This wasn't so simple. What kind of place was the Wanderer's Pavilion? It was an establishment with influence spread across the great Azure continent. And who were its customers? Only the most renowned, wealthy, or powerful individuals. Indeed, the service at Wanderer's Pavilion was superior to most places, but when had anyone ever seen their staff act so deferentially? It was as if they were treating her like a partial owner. Strange. Truly strange. Could this woman have some extraordinary background? William Knight wondered. Meanwhile, Luna Claire wrote another note. As soon as the assistant finished preparing the ingredients from the first list, she handed him the second note. Once all the medicinal ingredients were ready, the assistant calculated the total. 550 silver taels, an undeniably hefty sum. Yet Luna Claire didn't seem rushed. Instead, she turned to William Knight with an air of expectation. "Pay up!" William Knight froze for a moment, utterly stunned that this plain-looking woman so matter-of-factly expected him to pay. Nevertheless, he obediently settled the bill. Leaving the Wanderer's Pavilion, Luna Claire didn't wait for William Knight to speak and immediately instructed him to find a quiet place. Not long after, William Knight brought Luna Claire to a charming small courtyard. Once inside, Luna Claire wasted no time.